Greetings, and welcome to The Thirsty Mage, the podcast whose trick to eternal life is to have a never-ending backlog of games to stay alive for. I'm your host, David Lloyd, and this episode, we do what we do best, and that's talk about a bunch of games that we probably don't need, but more than likely are going to buy. And since money is finite, we're going to do our best to ensure that you're spending your money wisely by providing some insight into some up-and-coming titles, as well as a couple of recent releases. With the Thirsty Mage team spread out across 3 time zones, we have to split this episode up into segments this week, starting with the man that traveled to PAX to get the latest on the RPG scene. It's Jordan Rudick.
Yeah, hey David. Just got back on Sunday night, and as much fun as I had, as exciting as the games were that I played there, the highlight or low light of the trip, I guess, was when a tree fell on my car. So
Oh no.
that was kind of a crazy thing that I woke up to on Sunday morning. But
Oh, I know the agony of having to deal with insurance and all that ridiculousness.
So I'm kind of just starting that process, I guess. I sent in. There's like an online form you fill out over here for an insurance claim. So I did that last night. I sent them some pictures. I had so many pictures of the car. I mean, it was fine. It was drivable. You know, not that it stopped us from kind of going anywhere. We were staying at an Airbnb in Seattle when we were attending PAX West, and the guy, the owner, was nice enough to kind of just let us stay there until the tree got cut off of the car and everything got cleaned up a little bit. So we ended up going to PAX that morning as we had planned. We just took an Uber to get there. And then by the time maybe 2 or 3 in the afternoon, everything was cleared up. And so we were able to get back to the place where we were staying, grab the car, and we just went on our way back to Vancouver at that point. So yeah, so that was kind of a fun little experience there. Obviously, it was nice to have a lot of cool games to play before and after that event, but definitely a memorable trip. We'll say that for sure.
Yeah, it's a process I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. It's hopefully it goes smooth for you, but yeah, it's never fun. Especially I can't believe it even happened in the US. Like what a
I know exactly.
pain, eh?
Yeah. Literally one tree fell down that we had seen anywhere. I guess there were strong winds on the Saturday night or early Sunday morning, and so we come outside, and I had planned to park my car up like 10 feet further up the street, kind of closer to like the entrance of the unit, but there was a hedge or a bush on the right side, so my brother, who was in the passenger seat, wouldn't be able to get out. So I backed up a little bit so there was a little bit more space for him, and sure enough, that's where the tree came down. So just a kind of a funny. You can only laugh at it, right? Like, just a freak and a net thing of nature taking place there. So yeah, again, it's not like the damage is anything major. We'll see what happens with the insurance, but still drivable, still functional. Just a couple dents on the roof, nothing too bad.
And just quickly before we get into your roundup of what you got to play at PAX West, have you downloaded Baldur's Gate 3 yet on PS5?
I haven't, and I'll tell you why. I have a lot of PAX stuff to do. I'm also working on a review game for something that's coming out soonish. So I've had like kind of things I need to get off my plate. I want to kind of have nothing going on before I start it, because I know that once I do get into it, I'm going to be kind of in there 110%. So haven't started it yet, but it is close. I'm a day or two away here, I think.
That's good. I'm currently stuck trying to figure out. I'm in this. There's been a couple battles now where I've had to play them a couple times because they have funny quirks to them. Like one was just I had too many overpowered enemies at one go, and I had to figure out like, okay, how am I going to get out of this alive?
Yeah.
But my latest hang up now is that I've kind of stumbled into some kind of weird like vampiric ritual where this vampire is turning into a god, and I have to kill him before he ascends to godhood and then kills me.
Oh gosh.
So yeah, it's been a few tries because you only get 3 turns and then he becomes a god. So I'm racking my brain. I'm trying. I'm going to work. Mine's not even like on life. It's just like, how do I kill the vampire?
Yeah, this isn't a situation where you're just praying for like throwing some D20s or some natural 20s or something like that, and that would take them out, I guess. But
no, it takes
you probably need something a little more fancy than that.
Yeah, I wish there's these special bombs that there's only like one or two of them throughout the entire game, and now I'm wishing there was like some kind of hack that I could just reproduce these bombs in some kind of factory,
Right,
and
right.
it would solve all my problems.
Yeah, I wonder if you have to go back and find something more powerful or
Yeah.
yeah, no,
Well,
I'm
that's why
excited
we
to
have
get
50
into it for
saves.
sure. I think I'm a little bit behind, obviously, where you are now, but it's good. Like I think that it doesn't really matter kind of how much you've played or who's further or anything like that, because it's all about the different experiences you have, right? So my playthrough is going to be wildly different from yours, anyways.
Oh, I'm sure. I can't imagine that you have the same bloodthirst that I have in this game. So
No, I'm more into the talking and kind of using conversation to get through conflicts. So we'll see how well that serves me when I boot up the game. But yeah, I am planning to get it. I knew I wasn't gonna have time for the early access being in Seattle over the weekend, so I didn't go for the digital deluxe version. I'll just get the base version. But yeah, I should be installing that tonight or tomorrow. Kids are back to school this week, so there's a little bit more kind of getting everyone in the house settled as well. And again, I just trying to get to everything off my plate, starting at zero before I get into this game, so I can kind of have like a full day to really sink my teeth in. But I am excited for that. And that is coming soon. So yeah, more you'll hear more
yeah,
impressions about Baldur's Gate from us
yeah.
soon. If not next week, then the week after for sure.
Endless anecdotes. I'm sure there will be.
No doubt. Let's get into the PAX West roundup. So I didn't, I want to say I played about in the 10 to 12 game range. I mean, I saw more games than that, but PAX West was kind of spread out a little bit more this year. Yeah, just kind of divided up in a different or funny way, I guess. So you basically had three areas. You had like the PAX, they called it the Arch, I think, which was basically the original convention center where PAX is normally held. So a portion of that was dedicated to booths like Square Enix, Sega. I think Inti Creates was in there as well. I'm struggling to think. The Indie Mega booth was there, where you have kind of like this corridor or this U-shaped corridor where it's just all kind of new and upcoming indie games. So they had that was kind of in its normal place, and so that all this area, this floor space looked very familiar. Across from this, the other half of the Arch building was dedicated to an event called Nintendo Live. Nintendo Live, you needed to have not only a PAX badge, I believe, but you also had to have a special Nintendo Pass as well. And they were only giving those out to people in the US. So unfortunately, I didn't get one, so we didn't get a chance to cover that event. And it might have even been for the best, because I heard really long lineups to get into Nintendo Live, and then lineups to kind of check out. They did have Mario Wonder there, so that would have been cool to check out. But long lineups to check out those as well. No food, no drink. So just kind of browsing Reddit, there were a lot of complaints and kind of sadder stories about people who had gone to Nintendo Live. So it might have dodged a bullet there. Would have been cool to get in there, but we didn't, unfortunately. So those are the first two sections. And then there's a new convention center that was built. They were calling it kind of PAX Summit. And so you had more games there. You had more video games there. You had tabletop. You had some theaters for some of the panels. And so everything was just a little bit more, spread out this time. It was a little bit more walking, a little bit more planning to kind of get where you're going. So to that end, I didn't book as many appointments as I might normally, but did still end up getting to try a lot of cool games. So I will start with Xseed's booth. So at Xseed's booth, my colleague, also named Jordan, and we played three games at Xseed's booth. We played Freedom Planet 2, which is a kind of platformer in the Sonic vein. We played, I think it's called Fashion Dreamer or Fashion Designer, something like that. It's a Switch exclusive fashion game, maybe in the vein of something like Style Savvy. I'll have to talk to Paige about that, because I think she's more familiar with those games, and I'm curious if she's going to be picking this one up. And then we both played a game called Silent Hope, and that's the RPG I'm going to focus on here. Silent Hope is an action RPG in the vein of something like Fantasy Life. It has that kind of chibi, kind of cartoonish style, and it has a lot of kind of dungeon crawling elements to it as well. The premise is that there's this kind of small town where your seven kind of adventurers live, and there's a giant kind of abyss that's opened up, and the abyss is the dungeon that you're going to keep trying to go down into. The story behind it is that a king has kind of taken away everybody's voice, hence the silent in the Silent Hope. And his daughter, the princess, is trying to empower you to kind of or gives you the quest of trying to return everybody's voices to their natural place. So what we played in the demo was, I guess, a portion of the dungeon, and then we got to go back to the town area. There's a lot of focus on crafting. You're picking up a lot of materials in the dungeon during the kind of action RPG combat. A lot of materials, a lot of crafting things. You pick up recipes as well. And then you bring those back to town. And the 7 adventurers basically all have their own stand or shop. And so you kind of deal with them, I think, for completing the recipes or improving your gear. You can switch between the 7 classes almost on the fly. You have an opportunity to do that in town and then at these crystals that show up in the dungeons. And I came across 2 or 3 of the crystals, I think. So across the maybe 2 or 3 floors that I went through before I fought a boss, I had multiple opportunities to switch classes. So I ended up trying 3 of them. One I think was called Fighter, and she fought with her fists. I also tried Warrior, who had a giant axe, a little bit slower, but I think she, I think it's a she, had a crowd control ability and could hit multiple enemies at once. The Fighter was more focusing on one-on-one type combat. And they also tried the Rogue, who looked something like, what's in the Trails series, what's the maid's name? Elisa's maid, who ends up joining your team.
You got me on the spot.
Yeah, I was on the spot
I should
myself
know
trying
that
to figure out what it was.
I'm going to get roasted in the Discord now.
No, it's not like I was trying to set you up here to fall, but we'll get it in a sec. In any case, Sharon, I think it is. It's Sharon.
Yeah,
right?
that's it, Sharon. Yeah.
So this maid looks like Sharon, got the double daggers, and her abilities were kind of focused on quick hitting, but kind of blinking around the enemy. So one of her abilities was a blink, kind of blink dash attack, and her dash or her avoiding type move on the trigger where the right bumper was another kind of blink. So lots of mobility from that last class to get around enemies. Now, it was the Rogue that I used to take out this crab boss that I fought and kind of ended the demo with. Yeah, I think what's cool about this one is just the fact that you can be switching between the classes as you like. You're going to pick up items for, even if you're playing as the Rogue, you can pick up items and recipes for the other classes as well. So you're kind of incentivized after you pick up some good gear for the caster or one of the mage classes. You go back and you maybe switch to that one after because you got something good for them to use. The loot kind of dropping and crafting reminded me a little bit of Diablo. You have the different colors on items to indicate rarity. But yeah, I mean, we played about 10 or 15 minutes of the game. I think it shows promise. I don't know that it's going to be one of those games where there's a major kind of story through line that kind of propels you. I think this is more a game about the combat and the mechanics. And, do you like that that grind of, picking up new gear, leveling up, all that stuff? Are you getting into that? Then this might be a game for you. But I like the art style. I think the visuals look pretty good on Switch. We did play this game on Switch in docked mode, and it felt pretty good. So I am eager to see more of Silent Hope, and I think it's got a late October or early November release date. So it's
October
not too
3rd
far.
I got on
Oh yeah,
Steam.
that's even sooner than I thought. So I'm really a month away. Isn't that long to wait for it? So yeah, I mean, it's an Exceed game, and one of the funny things that they mentioned at the outset is that it's set in the same universe as Story of Seasons and Rune Factory. And I actually found one of the Story of Seasons looking cows in the town. It was kind of just hiding off to the side there. So little nods to those series maybe being packed into Silent Hope as well for fans of those games. But yeah, it was fun. We're gonna have a video on NWR probably early next week with our preview thoughts and showing a little bit more footage of the game. So stay tuned for that on Silent Hope. The next one, so switching gears a little bit, non RPG this time, and I have to talk about it because I think it might be my game of the show, and that's Cobalt Core. Cobalt Core is very, very reminiscent of something like FTL Faster Than Light. David, have you played Faster Than Light before?
No, I probably own it because I feel like at some point I thought, oh, this looks like up my alley, but I don't actually think I played much of it if I did at all.
Yeah, it's I think it's a pretty popular, well received roguelike space set game, sci-fi kind of game where you are trying to I guess get from one end of the galaxy to the next with your ship and your whatever configuration you've kind of started with, and then along the way you can unlock new ships. You'll encounter events, you'll encounter combat, stuff like that. It's a little bit more not action oriented because you can kind of stop time and then do what you want to do, but there is a little bit more action feel to it, I guess. When you as opposed to a turn based feel. Cobalt Core is very similar to that in terms of you're trying to get across these three different maps that all have about 20 or 30 different events on them. Again, whether that's combat, finding a treasure, finding someone who can repair your ship, but it also has deck building as well. So you have these characters and they all have their own decks, and those are the abilities you use during combat. So let's say the first square that you land on is combat against an enemy ship. You're going to have 5 cards laid out in front of you, and those will be your moves in combat. And you have 3 energy to spend on those cards. So maybe that's firing a shot from your ship. Maybe that's using a dodge move to get out of the way of the enemy fire, which you can telegraph. You see where the enemy is going to shoot you uh, on your turn, so you have a chance to avoid it or block it with a shield. As you progress, you pick up new cards that give you different abilities, but maybe they have negative effects to them as well. There was one card ability I was using where I could do 4 damage right away, but then I would pick up 3 kind of garbage cards like exhaust that I would draw them, and they would prevent me from drawing something more useful. So you have that kind of push and pull of when do I use this ability, adding bad and good cards to your deck, and kind of try to figure out that balance, I guess. As you go through Cobalt Core, you can unlock new ships, you can unlock new characters. If you make it all the way through a run, which I was told takes about an hour or two to do, you get little story beats attached to the characters as well. So the developers I was meeting with told me about 20 to 30 hours, I think, to see all of the story content if you're kind of playing it continuously like that and really aiming for that goal. But hundreds of hours of content just in terms of the permutations of like what ship do you start with, what characters do you put into that ship to pilot it. The characters are all animals with kind of cute names and funny dialogue. But yeah, Cobalt Core, really, really good. I made it all the way to the final boss of the demo. I think I took out the final boss without getting hit. The developers were super impressed. And I was kind of very just very proud of myself for showing off well, I guess, in front of the people making the game. But just from the moment I got into it, I was absolutely hooked on this game.
I have to give
Coming
the
this,
devs some props for their system requirements on Steam.
oh yeah,
So under processor, they have anything,
oh I
comma
love it.
really. They have for graphics, it says, yeah, we got those. And then for sound card, it says ideally.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see why they'd want this game to be pretty approachable. They one thing I do want to highlight about the game as well is it does a very good job of explaining everything. There, how sometimes we play roguelikes and other run-based games, and you don't always know what to do or how things work, like how a mechanic works, how an item works, and you have to kind of just trial and error it. Like, frankly, that's something that turns me off about the genre. This game, there's nothing like that. You click on a card or you hover over something on an enemy ship that's flashing or something, it tells you exactly what's going on. There's a lot of explanation of every single kind of mechanic and visual cue that you see. So you're never really in the dark about what's going to happen. It's more just choosing the best action to deal with what's coming next. And so I respect them for that for sure. You were on the Steam page. I was going to ask you to confirm the release date. I think it's November. I think it's coming to Steam in November. If it
On
doesn't say
Steam, it
that,
actually there's no date. Actually, it just said
okay.
plan for 2023. So that would if I would say probably November, December.
I think I was either told November or maybe in the press materials there was November. I hope that it's coming to consoles. I wouldn't be surprised. I kind of got that feeling like they talked about making the game work with a controller as well, although it worked perfectly on keyboard and mouse, which is what I was using. So hopefully a console release or Switch release down the line as well. But this one stuck out to me. Just really really enjoyed it. Got into it pretty fast and. It was fun kind of going back with the two go back and forth with the two developers that were sitting with me as well. Yeah, Cobalt Core definitely one to add to your list, especially if you like or liked FTL or a game like Into the Breach. Like those are two of my favorite kind of run based games. This feels like kind of right up that alley too. back to something a little bit more familiar for the Thirsty Mage, and that is a Dragon Quest game. Not a mainline game, no Dragon Quest 12, no Dragon Quest 3 HD, unfortunately, but I did play a game that is coming this month, September, Infinity Strash. Whatever Strash means, I don't know.
Yeah.
Infinity Strash, Dragon Quest, dash, or hyphen, The Adventures of Dai, Dai, D-A-I. This is based on an anime, The Adventures of Dai. I guess it's on Crunchyroll. I haven't seen it yet. I probably will check out a little bit of it before the game comes out. But this is an action RPG as well. Very very similar to other kind of
Looks like
drag.
ease.
Yeah. It played a little bit like Ease too, in terms of the switching between different party members, kind of on the fly, and I guess using their abilities. You can use the triggers to activate different attacks. There are ultimate attacks, and I don't know if there's a full party one, but you can kind of switch between the characters when their meter builds up, and then just unleash their ultimate ability. So I had three characters on my team. I don't remember the names, but I had Dai, who's kind of a swordsman. I had an offensive mage, and then more of a healing type mage, a girl who had like a gun as well. And you could switch between her staff and her healing abilities, and then whip out her gun for ranged attacks and I guess gun based abilities as well. With Infinity Strash, I didn't get a chance to try out the story. I guess the story or the main game, but I was put in kind of a roguelike type dungeon area where you would go. It's basically your way of kind of catching up in experience and items. So I was told that if you found yourself behind at some part in the game, you would go back to this temple, and you can go through these I guess different floors in the dungeon, which I suppose are randomized or you don't. I guess you don't know what enemies you're going to fight or what order of events are going to take place. But in the dungeon, you can increase stats temporarily while you're in the dungeon. Like you can choose to go like an offensive route or a defensive route, and then you'll find treasures every few floors or so. You'll fight bosses, and you're basically trying to find these equipable memory items that can also be upgraded. So you find these memories, you equip them to your characters, or to boost like offensive stats or magic stats or whatever, and then you can also, I think, with currency inside the dungeon or maybe outside of it as well, you can level up these memories so that they're stronger equipable items for you. Game looks great. It felt great to play. I think we were playing on an Xbox, or at least it was on an Xbox controller. I'm not sure if it was an Xbox console. It might have been PC, but yeah, felt good, looked good. That Toriyama art style really never goes out of fashion. Looks great here. I don't know, how meaty this game is, or what exactly the story is going to be. I think it is planning to follow the anime. So if you have been watching that show, or if you're eager to play the game and maybe want a head start a little bit, it sounds like watching the anime will give you a sense of what's to come in the game. So for that reason, I'm going to try to check out some of the show and see. But it's a Dragon Quest game. I like that universe. I like those characters, the abilities, all that stuff. So I'll probably check this out. Maybe even review it. But it is, again, more action RPG as opposed to turn based or anything like that. So something to keep in mind. Next one, going back to the indie scene, played a game called Animal Well from a solo developer, but it's I want to say not published, but maybe this developer Billy, who I met, is kind of being aided or assisted by Dan Edelman. Dan Edelman used to work for Nintendo, and I think he was kind of one of their indie partner managers types. Like I think he would be the kind of person like, okay, we're going to make this an indie exclusive on Switch. Like I think he was doing that kind of liaising or contacting indie partners type deal. I think that was Dan's job or role at Nintendo. So I believe he's solo now, and so he may have worked with Tom Happ on Axiom Verge. I might be getting that wrong. I don't remember. But at any rate, he's helping to bring Animal Well to the public. And Animal Well is a Metroidvania type game, kind of minimalist graphic style, really cool use of colors, a lot of dark settings, and then kind of punctuated by kind of brighter colors and kind of different colors depending on where you are in this cavern or this dungeon area. You basically play as like this little blob, not a lot of character to the protagonist that you're controlling, but kind of a good atmosphere to the game. Not a Metroidvania that's relying on combat, but one that is instead more about platforming, kind of collecting items, finding out where to use them, tripping switches so that something opens up or a platform becomes usable, kind of stuff like that. In one moment of the game, I was being chased by a ghost-like figure and I had to throw these firecrackers out to make it go away. So there are going to be ways to get out of danger by using items as well, but it doesn't seem like there's any kind of combat or dealing damage to anybody or anything like that. In Earthbound fashion, I think you use little phones to save your progress, although you're not calling your father or anything like that. But yeah, Anima Well seems like a cool game. I'm eager to see more of it. I don't remember if I think it's an early 2024 release as well. But anyone who's into the Metroidvania genre that doesn't particularly like the combat element of that and wants something a little bit more minimalist looking, Anima Well might be one that they want to check out too.
It's TBA on Steam. It looks pretty neat too.
Yeah, it's cool. We played it like a 9 or 10 minute demo, something like that. I think it's coming to a bunch of platforms as well. Switch, I was playing on a PlayStation 5, I think. So it should be everywhere, and definitely one you want to add to your radar too. Next, a couple more RPGs, traditional or classic RPGs, I guess. Persona 3 Reload. Got a chance to play that at the Atlas booth. I basically played all three games that Sega was demoing. So Persona 3 Reload. The demo, you had two choices basically of where you were going to start off with. I think one was earlier in the game, and I chose the one a little bit further into the game. And this one was basically the part of the game where you are on the train, or the kind of subway car, and you're moving from the back of the train to the front, and then you fight that boss to try to stop the train. I think this is one of the early required midnight hour. Is it midnight hour? Dark hour segments.
Darker, yeah.
So I only had the three characters on my team. The main character, Yukari, and oh gosh, what's the fellow's name?
Junpei?
Junpei. Yeah, Junpei. So you got a taste of the combat, which is good. Looks great. I mean, this is the thing that really stood out to me most about the game. It looks fantastic. I think the kind of visual overhaul is the thing that is going to sell people on this game. Obviously, kind of just seeing these different areas, and again, I didn't get to see too much of the setting of the game, but it is a total glow up for Persona 3 for sure. Oh, there goes the dog. Also liking Persona 3 Reload. Yeah, so got to the boss at the end of the train, and then the demo kind of wrapped up there. So I got a good sense of what the combat felt like. Nothing much has changed here. You still got that press turn system. If you hit an enemy weak point or you do a critical attack, you get another turn. I didn't get a chance to do an all-out attack. I was hoping to see that, but it just didn't come up. One thing I noticed about the character actions when they do an offensive, like just a basic attack, it kind of has multiple stages to it. So instead of just like a quick slash or a quick bow and arrow shot, you actually do like kind of 2 or 3 swipes or 2 or 3 shots. So there's a little bit more visual flourish there. I wouldn't say that the attacks I used were like kind of crazy visually impressive. I mean, I only had like a fire attack and a wind attack, but yeah, I think it's, again, just looking at the characters, the artwork, when the characters kind of come up and do their discussion points, that looked great. So I was saying to David just before we started recording that I went from probably not buying the game to maybe buying the game. And that's someone who already just replayed Persona 3 when it came to Switch earlier this year. So that is saying something for me. If you've never played this game, I think this is the time to do it. This is probably going to be the best way to play it.
I fell off 3/4 of the way through, so now it gives me an excuse to finish it.
That's right, and yeah. I would definitely say if you haven't played the first game or finished it, this is your chance to hop back in. I think it's PS5, PS4, Xbox, and maybe Xbox One, the Xbox Series consoles, probably PC as well.
We know it's everything but Switch.
It's everything but Switch, right? Yeah. I think we knew about that. So that's nice. Lots of opportunities for people to play it, and I believe it's Game Pass.
It's on
game
Game
as well,
Pass
right?
too.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised.
That's why I was like, I'm definitely getting it. And then I started thinking, well, I don't know, for $90. And then I keep forgetting it's on Game Pass. Which,
they announced the 2 Persona games they announced were coming to Game Pass, so that was kind of cool. One other thing to note, so the voice acting seems to have been re-recorded, obviously, so the voices will be a little bit different. I don't know who is coming back and who's not, so that'll be something to look forward to or look into. The music has also been re-recorded as well, but I heard some of the familiar tracks. I think they still sound good, just a little bit different. So yeah, Persona 3 Reload was a fun demo. That was about a 15-minute one. I wish if I'd had more time, I would have played the other demo segment as well, just to see where that was and maybe to get a little more sense of the different environments. But yeah, the kind of full 3D walking around spaces, it does feel good. It's a little bit closer to Persona 5 in that regard than the Persona 3 Portable we got earlier this year. So yeah, that was one Persona game I played. I also played a little bit of Persona 5 Tactica. This was a shorter demo, probably in the like 6 or 7 minute range. Went by pretty fast. Didn't get anything of the story. This was strictly combat. I played 2 different maps. I had Joker, Morgana, and then the new character. I think their name is Elena or Elaine, something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
And then, so one of the things that they showed off was this kind of triple attack where if you knock down an enemy and then your party of 3 or your supporting characters get on either side of that enemy, you can initiate this kind of super attack. So kind of like an all-out attack, I guess. And so what it did was it created like this triangle around not just the enemy I knocked down, but also 2 that were beside it. And we did this kind of big flame attack that hit everybody and took out all 3 enemies. So that was pretty cool. So your position in terms of setting up super attacks is going to matter. So a little bit more of that strategy RPG element coming into play there for sure. There was also something where if your character moves but doesn't take an action, they kind of charge up. And then they can do like a special attack on the next round, or they'll get a special buff for their next attack. So knowing kind of when to attack, when to charge up is going to be a consideration here as well. On the second map, there's a lot of kind of hiding behind obstacles. It reminded me a little bit of Mario plus Rabbids, actually, in the depending on the height of the object you're hiding behind, you'll have maybe a damage reduction versus like being completely blocked to the enemy fire or the enemy attacks, whatever that might be. One thing I noticed, Morgana used like a wind attack, the Garu attack with her persona, and it kind of knocked an enemy back. Not just so it didn't just do damage, but it also knocked them to a different square. So I guess there's going to be ways of manipulating characters on the enemies on the environment, not just in terms of giving them a status effect or doing damage, but also moving their position as well, maybe to set up different attacks. So yeah, it was cool. It looks good. I think this was also on an Xbox console as well. I wish I'd had a chance to kind of see a little bit more of the story or anything outside of the combat, because I guess that's what I think I already know I'm going to like the combat of Tactica, but I want to know kind of what is there in terms of progression and story, side quests, all those kind of things. It was just very much a teaser demo, I think, here. Tactica coming to all platforms, I believe. I don't think there was anything
I'm pretty
left
sure
out
there's
here.
a Switch version, yeah.
Yeah, it's a Switch version there, but also, I believe, a Game Pass game too. So, and then the final game I'm going to talk about here is Like a Dragon Gaiden, or Gaiden, The Man Who Erased His Name. This is a spin-off title of the Yakuza games. I think it follows directly the events of Yakuza 6. So the ending of Yakuza 6, maybe slight spoilers here, but Kiryu, the main character, kind of goes into hiding. And I guess, I don't know if this happens at the end of 6 or the beginning of The Man Who Erased His Name, but Kiryu has now kind of changed his name. He's Joryu, and he's become like a secret agent, kind of keeping up with the kind of crazy events or themes that happen in these games. But yeah, so he's a secret agent, and what happened in the demo that I played, about a 10 or 12 minute demo, was I was on a helicopter with this woman. She was taking me to this kind of container ship that had basically like this mini theme park on it. The theme park had a casino, it had a coliseum, it had a cabaret bar. I think it had like a shop to buy new clothes. So it was its own kind of like miniature city, I guess. It reminded me a little bit of, what is it? Is it Wall Center from Final Fantasy VII Remake? Wall something.
Oh, Wall Street? No,
Well,
not
is it?
Wall.
It's not Wall
Not Wall
Street. It's
Street. Dang, you're.
I know
That's
I've
two
got
things I'm trying to get
doozies today.
roasted for.
I'm just stumping you every turn here. But yeah, that area of Final Fantasy VII where Cloud has to get into disguise by dressing up like a girl and then going into the honeybee
Wall
club or
Market.
whatever.
Jeez.
Wall Market, of course. Yeah, we were so
Yeah.
close. Yeah, it reminded me a little bit of the Wall Market segment from that game. But yeah, so I went into the casino, kind of looked around there, lots of different games to play. I went into the fashion area where you can kind of change your look, but there weren't any. I guess in the demo there weren't any options to play around with that. But you can kind of change Joryu, out of his secret agent look and maybe change him into something else. There was as soon as you get there, as soon as you get out of the container ship, there's a fight against some Yakuza. And the new abilities that Kiryu has are pretty cool. So one is almost like a Spider-Man one, where you throw out like these wires and you attach them to the enemies. You got to swing them around in a circle, and it hits all the other enemies that are nearby. So I use that a bunch. You can also send out these drones to attack enemies. I'm trying to remember what the other ones were.
I don't know if it gets any wilder than this.
No, those are the only two that I can remember. I used those.
Franchise is completely off the rails now.
Oh, you gotta love it. And so I use those the most. I went into the cabaret as well. And I wasn't sure if it'd be like a karaoke mini game or just like, you're sitting down with a girl and, trying to talk to her and win bonus points there with her, kind of building up a relationship meter or something like that. And what was cool is it's not just like an animated woman that is sitting with you. They've actually videotaped or captured like a real live person that you go on a date with or you kind of spend time with. So I thought that was kind of funny. And so anyone who likes that kind of those kind of elements of the Yakuza games, the cabaret segments, I thought that was kind of a cool, a neat touch, I guess, to in true next gen form. We're bringing real life people into the games now a little bit more. So that was neat. I think Yakuza 6 might have had something like that as well, but it was neat to see it here too. And then I guess the crux of the demo, the heart of the demo, was this Coliseum area. So you had two modes you could do. One was like a 10-person battle, and I used Joryu for that. Took it out pretty quickly, got like the S rank or gold medal or whatever it was. And then they had a second one, 100-man fight, and I switched, and you can choose a lot of different characters for that one. So I chose Majima, of course, gotta love him with his knife. I'm just slashing all these guys, and I get close to the end. I think the demo just like kind of started to auto shut down as I was wrapping up the 100-man fight. But you get a lot of money. I think you get experience or perk kind of points, ability points, maybe from doing the Coliseum fights. And I don't know how much of the game this demo represents, or if you're spending most of your time here. I think we know the Like a Dragon games to be quite meaty, to have a lot of content. And while this isn't a full release, I think it is in the $30 to $40 range. So it is a sizable bit of side content, I guess. What's cool about Like a Dragon Gaiden is that you're also going to get a demo for Like a Dragon. Was it Infinite Wealth? I think is the sequel to or the follow up to Ichiban's story. So there's also going to be a playable demo of that with the full version of The Man Who Erased His Name. After playing this demo, I'm a little bit more interested in it. I think I might just pick it up. I like these games. I feel ready to get into another Yakuza game or Like a Dragon, I guess.
Did they say if this was going to be on Game Pass? Because I felt like I can't remember if Like a Dragon, like the Ichiban one, I think was on Game Pass at some point. I don't know if it was day one Game Pass.
It wouldn't shock me because they added all the Yakuza games to Game Pass and to PlayStation Plus, right? So they've been kind of, with a lot of these games, they've been looking into the subscription service, I guess, maybe to get more eyes on these. And it wouldn't surprise me to do this side story like that, especially with another full priced game coming presumably next year or early in 2025. So getting more people playing the Like a Dragon games, I wouldn't be surprised if more of them are going to be on the subscription services. So yeah, but those are the games. Some of the games that I played at PAX West. I played a few more. I will have again more coverage popping up on NWR over the next week to 10 days, including videos for Mina the Hollower. I played a second demo of that. I'll also have one for Rift of the Necrodancer, which is a rhythm-based game compared to, I guess, the more roguelike or more dungeon type of games like Crypt of the Necrodancer and then Cadence of Hyrule. and maybe a couple other games as well that we played. So stay tuned for all of that. But yeah, that was me. I don't know, David. What of these games gonna jump out at you? Like, what are you looking forward to here?
Uh,
I don't know
definitely,
if I
like you
sold you
said,
on anything, or maybe piqued your interest a little bit more. I don't know.
well, Reload for sure is probably top of the list because I was going to pick that one up. The Cobalt Core looks pretty neat.
Mm-hmm.
I'll probably give that one a go, especially since it'll probably be just one from being from a one-man indie developer. It's
Yeah,
probably going to
exactly.
be on the cheaper side, so it'll be pretty easy to pick up.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, those are probably the highlights for me.
Yeah, yeah.
Like the Dragon Quest one looks neat, but I can only do so many action RPGs, and then
I know
you know,
exactly. Yeah, and again, like we're probably going to get Ease 10 in the near future. I think too. That could be a next year type of game. So you're almost better off maybe waiting for that if you're not playing too many of those style games. But for the Dragon Quest, the person has to play everything Dragon Quest. I think it will be a fun one.
yeah. But yeah, looking forward to they all sound pretty neat.
Mm-hmm.
I just will have to get in touch with my bank to fill out the loans to pay for all these games,
Oh
and
yeah,
then
you and me both. Any game that I don't get a review code for is going to be another dent in the wallet for sure. And yeah, these some of these smaller games again, like Silent Hope, Cobalt Core, Animal Well. I want to play all of these. They look great, and we've got a good mix of RPGs and indies coming out in the near future. So if anything here looks good or sounded good to you, add it to that wish list. Keep track of it. We will probably revisit some of these on future episodes as well. But it was good to get a little bit of a taste of them, so we know kind of how we want to spend our very limited gaming hours.
perfect. Well, I want to thank you for making the trip, powering through the adversity, and getting us
Yes.
some of these games.
Yeah,
Re-
and we'll
yep.
hopefully next year, no wind based accidents, no trees falling on me. I'm
Yes, sir.
gonna have to park, in a sheltered parking lot next time just to keep the car safe. I think, but yeah.
Cool. Yeah, well, stick around. We'll be right back with some Armored Core talk from Casey. And we're back with Mr. Casey Gibson, the only one brave enough on the Thirsty Mage team to take on the latest From Software game, Armored Core 6. I have to say, I know a couple of us were looking into it. I know Jordan. It was funny, like it was probably a week or two ago that Jordan was asking us who was all picking it up, and initially I was
Crickets.
thinking, yeah, there was a lot of crickets. I was kind of like casually to myself thinking, maybe like I liked Elden Ring, I like Demon Souls, like they've been kind of nailing it on PS5. And then I started reading stuff about how difficult it was, and I'm like, I'm gonna leave it for now. But you could tell me if it's overestimated or if it is tough as nails, or how just maybe generally how are you enjoying the Armored Core 6?
Yeah, so well, it's interesting because I was sort of not. It wasn't really on my radar. It was something like, oh, Armored Core always looks cool. I mean, I remember growing up and feeling like I can't remember which one of my friends was like an Armored Core like fiend, but I had one, and I remember being like, yeah, like it's definitely cool, but I never had a PlayStation or anything, so it was like, whatever. Um, but yeah, then and as we sort of crept closer to launch here, I was like, oh, it looks sort of cool. Um, you know, I mean, I love Demon Souls. Elden Ring was cool, and obviously From Software has such a pretty much I don't want to say flawless, but near flawless record, right? Especially of late, it seems like everything they sort of pop out is high quality. So,
Mm.
um, I kept my eye on it. I saw reviews were pretty positive. People really liking it. And then Alex was actually gushing about it. And for him, actually, I think it's his current game of the year. Actually, he's
Oh,
beaten it four
likes it that.
times.
4 times.
Yeah, so it's interesting because it's one of those games where, and like any sort of From Software, generally like after you do it once, it becomes way quicker and easier, right? Like you sort of pick up how it works. Um, so I know he's said like the first playthrough was like 20 something, then it was like 12, then it was like 8, so it's like knocks it down a lot. But So how the game itself works is, obviously it's a mech game. So a lot of it is, customizing your mech, whether that be different, weapons, different, legs, arm, pretty much any piece of the, mech itself you can really sort of mess around with. So, you start out like a sort of normal mech, and then, you can get like tank treads, you can get quad legs, you can get like these grasshopper like legs, they're like inverted, but you jump really well. And then, obviously, with the weapons, you get, there's all sorts of, cannons, missiles, lasers, phase cannons, phase swords, so there's a lot of different, sort of loadouts you can mess with. But in terms of the actual gameplay itself, it's a lot of like, you start out, you're a mercenary, right? And like in the beginning, you're just sort of trying to prove yourself. So you'll get a, mission, and then it'll, generally the missions are really quick. If you're just going point A to B, like it'll be, hey, go in there, you need to destroy these things, then you're going to move in, destroy that thing. And, if you're just going, like I said, point A to point B, you can get through these missions in a matter of minutes. But a lot of time, you're sort of looking around, and the game looks wonderful. So it's nice to just visually just, like sort of in awe, like, wow, this is really cool. But, as you sort of get deeper in the game, like you'll know like, oh, I can fly by those little like sort of peon enemies. Like I don't need to stop and kill everything, but, they're generally different like types of missions. Like I said, there's some that are like, hey, go in and destroy this and this. Then there's some that are like, hey, there's a target, an AC, they call the mechs ACs, Armored Core. But yeah, so then there's some missions, where you're going in and you'll have a specific target, and there'll be, and again, how you have so much, how many options on different, loadouts, so do the enemies. So, fighting different enemies is, pretty drastically different, especially when you're getting into like the more like, hey, we're fighting other ACs. Those generally are my favorite. And actually, you'll unlock something pretty like early in the game, the arena, and that's literally just like, hey, here's a pecking order of the top ACs, right? Like go out and fight them one by one. Like you'll go in, fight, come back, go out. And then you'll earn, sort of like, hey, you completed this, the F series, the E series, and as you progress throughout the game, you unlock more of those. So I've been enjoying and, bouncing back into that. But in terms of difficulty, for me, it seems to be there's definitely spikes, right? Like generally missions are very, fairly simple, I'd say. It's not too much, and then like there are missions where like the end of chapter missions, where it's like, oh, I know I'm going to fight a big boss here, right? So I think like halfway through chapter 3, and I believe there's 5 chapters. So the first real big boy is at the end of chapter 1. And it's actually funny. Alex is sort of like, hey, if you can get through the first boss, like you can get through all of them. It's sort of like he had most trouble with the first boss. And I will say I went in there and I was getting real frustrated. I was getting because it was one of these ones, and I'm not going to go into too much spoilers or anything, but essentially, right, like once you got it to 50%, he sort of went buck wild. So like I would be able to get him to 50% fairly, like not easily, but fairly, after a little bit of practice, I would consistently get to that point. But like I would just take too much damage in the beginning, like, you know what I mean? Like, and then I would be like, I need to have like a perfect second half. And then I'd get to the point where, like, if I was just taking too much damage in the first, I'd just restart, like forget it. And the worst is, like, I'm used to, like, for a restart, right? Like, press pause, like, you toggle down one on the menu, press A, X and go. But that's restart mission. If you press start and just press A, it's restart from the last checkpoint. So at least
I see where this is going.
5 times I'd restart the mission.
Oh man!
After already being frustrated, and you're like, see,
Yeah.
you're like, oh god. Now, luckily, like I said, the missions aren't too long, and like it was the end of chapter mission, so it was a little bit longer than the other one, but it was just annoying enough where it'd be like you're already annoyed, so it's like God. But essentially, what happened, I was like, this feels like BS. Like, what is going on? And then and I'd switch out different, like with the weapons I had unlocked and had, I was trying to mix and match like what would work and just nothing. So eventually I was like, I just need to buy new parts, and like, unfortunately that meant like, all right, I need to go back and replay like previous missions to farm some gold. So there was like an easy enough mission that paid out pretty well. So I ran that like 5 or 6 times. And again, it takes like 2 or 3 minutes. So maybe a half hour. And then I beefed up and then I went in there and one shot him, which felt really, really good. So I think the game is sort of like with that first boss, it sort of tells you like, hey, you're going to have to change your loadout here. Like you're going to have to try different things. Because essentially I went back, I bought I bought the quad legs, which are awesome because you can hover. So like you could jump and you could fly a little bit, but like you're limited by your booster and like how much energy you have. So like generally if you have sort of like a normal, like what I would say like a Gundam looking mech, right? Where, like, hey, I got my legs, my arms, I'm holding some guns and stuff. Like they can jump and float a little bit, but like not for long. But with the quad legs, you could just really hover up there for a really long time. And that was super beneficial to fighting this one particular boss. So I've sort of, I've messed around with my mech a little bit, but I've kept the 4 legs. And I've got like these big, like I've got a huge laser cannon on my right shoulder. I've got the songbirds, they call them. It's like a double grenade, high power weapon on my left shoulder. And then I've got some like plasma guns in my hands, and it feels really good. And getting into the second boss, it was one of those ones where right off the bat I never felt overpowered. Like I was like, okay, I feel good. It still took me about an hour. The worst was like on my third try, I got him down to like 1 hit left, and I absolutely choked it. I had like I had plenty of health left, but I was like, oh my god, just blast and blast, and then all of a sudden just like the one where you die and you just like put the controller down. You're like, what an idiot. Like if I had just like done what I was doing the entire time, I would have been fine. But and then like of course it took me like another 45 minutes after that to kill it. But I would say it's not too hard. I mean it's definitely hard, right? But it's not like unfair. Like I said, in the beginning it almost felt a little unfair, but that was with me trying to sort of beat my head against the wall, without changing much. So if you go in with the idea like, hey, you could change up your mech, like you're going to want to change things up and sort of like play to the strengths of certain, weapons or body types versus certain boss. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be afraid of playing this game for its difficulty. I mean, unless if you're really like, you don't want any friction in games, but if like you're cool with like a little bit of a challenge and you don't mind, fighting a boss for an hour, to overcome it. But I don't think it's going to be anywhere where like, oh man, yep, you're going to spend 6, 7, 8 hours on this one boss. Like it.
Yeah.
I mean, and granted, I haven't beaten the game yet, but from what Alex said, he was like the first boss was the toughest. One of the second bosses was like gave him trouble, and then like whether it was just because the game clicked and he got better, he felt like those were the 2 toughest bosses. So yeah, I wouldn't shy away from it in terms of that.
It sounds exactly like a From Software game. Like that almost describes word for word my experiences with Dark Souls, Demon Souls, and Elden Ring, where you first start out and you just feel like you're getting trounced all the time, and you just get frustrated and annoyed, and then to the point where like there was a few times where I just wanted to quit because I'm like, I'm not having fun. This is no fun. Like you get to the first boss, you just get creamed, and you're like, why am I torturing myself? Like it doesn't make any sense. Like, and then when you finally beat the boss, and it's really difficult or whatever, and then all of a sudden it's like the next boss is just a little bit easier, and then a little bit easier.
Yeah, it's like the snowball effect,
Yeah, and it's the same thing. It's like it's probably a little bit. You're getting used to the controls, or you get getting more comfortable. Plus, also like you're leveling up, so you're just naturally becoming stronger, and then in certain cases you're finding like the system that works for you, whether like you're using magic or using a certain weapon or whatever. Like it really sounds like kind of the whole design philosophy at from software is like well, we'll call the week in the first 8 hours. Like the really people who don't want to be pushed or whatever, and it just pushes you enough to get you over that hump, and then it's like not you just start kind of the smooth sailing of like, okay, I'm getting the hang of it, I'm starting to love it,
Yeah, and what's cool is too for like the guys and gals out there who really like getting to customizing. Like you can do decals, you can do paint on you can paint individual parts on your mech. There's weathering effects, there's gloss and matte, so you can really get into the nitty gritty of making your mech look like super cool as well. Um, the story itself is like I said, the first like chapter or two is really sort of like, hey, you're a nobody. Let's prove that you're like an awesome merc. You know what I mean? And then like as you like now I'm starting to get like on the Rubicon, which is the planet, right? There's this coral is like a resource that they're harvesting, and it's like you've got sort of like different companies vying and for different for different reasons they want it. And it's starting to open up a little bit more. I hear as the game goes, the story gets better and better, but it isn't like the big focal point. It's more about the gameplay. And yeah, like I said, it's got that from software. It feels real good to move around, and you know, it it's just I don't know what it is. They got a style, like you said, and it feels real good. There's definitely a bit of a learning curve there, but once you get it and it clicks, it feels really nice. It's funny actually because there's like so you could do like a boost, like a real high power boost, and then like you can actually like ram into enemies and like actually do like a attacks melee attacks that way. But it's on the map to the left joystick when you click in, right? And
Yeah.
dude, that was also in the beginning. I was getting real frustrated because I'd be like, all right, I want to do this. And then like, I just try and turn quick. And then I click the button in by accident. And then all of a sudden I'm firing full blast and I'm like in the wrong direction, So it was like, that was adding to my frustration as well. Like this game is already tough and it doesn't need me flying around like a chicken without a head. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
So like, luckily I was able, I went in and just remapped, like the stick buttons, like when you click the right one in, naturally it does like a lock, a target lock.
Yeah.
And the left was the boost. I switched those. So now I don't go flying all over the place by accident. So that was real nice as well. But like I said, if you're interested in the game, I think it's definitely worth checking out. Don't be afraid of, like I said, being too difficult. Like I said, it is a game where like you're in the menus, you jump into a mission. Like I said, some of the missions are pretty quick and then you're back in the menu. So there is quite a bit of that. Like it definitely has that sort of, PS2 vibe. Like it feels like a PS2 game, but like not in a bad way. Like that style, they just brought it to,
Yeah.
2023, polished it up real good and like made everything feel like immaculate.
That's good. I'll probably check it out at some point. I might wait for a
nice
sale.
Yeah.
There's just so much games going on right now.
Yeah, you know what
like
it is
wild.
too. The good thing is it's 60 to start because it is. I believe it for PS4 as well, right? I think From Software they release it for both gens.
Oh, okay.
Always, I think, right?
Let
me see. Hold on.
I
See
don't
if
know.
I'm talking out my butt. I could have sworn that it was for. Yep, PS4, 5, Windows, Xbox One, and Series. So, yep, $60, which is nice. So yeah, that it'll eventually probably knock down on sale. The worst thing is if you only lived in America, I could just mail it to you for like $5. You could play it and then mail it back.
Oh yeah, you got the physical day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only it would probably just cost cheaper for you to just get a used copy than for me to mail it to you.
Yeah,
to Canada.
I'd imagine it'd be like $20 or $30 by the time it goes both ways.
Crazy.
Yeah, but no, yeah, it's probably something that will be on my radar. Like 2023 has been ridiculous. Like I'm still trying to get through Baldur's Gate. Almost near the end. I've loaded Starfield. I played 10 minutes, like just long enough to get to the
Did
first
you
save.
uninstall it then?
Well, what's gonna happen? Well, it's funny you say that because I played it on the Series X, and then I just started thinking, it's like, you know what? Maybe I'll just wait until I finish Baldur's Gate, and then I'll like delete Baldur's Gate because it's
Steam
like
Deck it.
150 gigs or something and just download Starfield on my PC and play it there instead. I don't know if you've ever used the Xbox controller, but it's just, I don't know, something about it just doesn't feel right to me.
Doesn't
No.
jive. I haven't used one in a hot minute. I've never played a Series X, but
Yeah,
I played a one.
I
So
was gonna
I
say it's
think
no
they're pretty
different than the
similar,
one.
right?
It's pretty
Yeah.
much the same as the one, but it just does. I don't know, just something off about it. Like I actually don't mind the positioning of like some of the stuff, but it just, I don't know. It just, I guess when you play PlayStation for so long, anything
Yeah, once
anything
you
just
switch out,
feels
yeah.
different.
Yeah,
But
it's I actually had to get a second PlayStation controller for Baldur's Gate actually on PS5. Me and the wife were playing,
yeah,
and yeah, I was like, I stopped to think, and I was like, I, t- I guess we need to get another controller. Like I didn't even think about it because I was thinking turn based. Like we could theoretically just have like back and forth controller. But it's nice when you're exploring that like it's split screens and you can
yeah,
both go off in either direction. But I'm sure we're gonna have an episode about Baldur's Gate. But yeah,
yep.
I finished 16 a couple weeks back. Great game. Yeah, now I want to finish Armored Core. I got Baldur's Gate. I've started Sea of Stars and like it's fell off just because everything else going on, but I don't want to give up on that game because I was enjoying it. It's just a matter of finding the time, So yeah,
Yeah,
and then next thing you know, we're gonna have Mario Wonder out. We're gonna have Mario RPG.
yeah.
Are you gonna? You're not gonna get Wonder, are you?
I don't know. It's hard. I might. It's low on the priority list, but
That's wild to me. It looks so good. It looks so good.
yeah, I
You're
don't know.
definitely getting RPG though, right?
Yeah.
Oh my god. You're killing me, David.
I'm sure it'll probably be. I didn't.
Former Nintendo World Report editor.
Oh man, I don't know.
I'll never play Nintendo again.
When we played the SNES one, like it was fine, but I was kind of bored. So that's why I'm like, I hate and it's funny because you mentioned Sea of Stars. It's like the time based attacks just wear on my nerves after a while.
You're like, I either want to pay attention and be in a high action game, or I don't want to pay any attention to play turn based. No in the middle.
Yeah, like
Your mind's one or the other.
yeah, it's like I have no rhythm, and now you want me to push buttons on a certain at certain times, and
I don't know if you saw. Have you dove into Sea of Stars much? I know you got it.
Yeah, I'm about 6 or 7 hours in. Like there are relics that you can turn on.
Yeah,
that cheese stuff.
Oh well, I was going to say there's a relic. It doesn't cheese it, but it just makes it a blatantly obvious if you hit it right.
Yeah, there's like a.
So like if you hit the timer, it almost looks like a firework just shoots up.
Yeah.
Just to let you know, like, hey, you did it. Because sometimes, I'll feel like, oh, I don't know if I timed that right. So with that thing, it's like you can't not realize if you timed it right,
Yeah, I mean, so I do have that one. The only one I've turned on so far is I turned on the one where if you don't time the defensive block, then there's a 35% chance that it'll just automatically block it.
What a baby!
Yeah,
No,
well, I figure it's like, well, at this point, if I'm not paying attention during the getting attacked or whatever, then I have a 35% chance of blocking. So it's not like totally pacifier or anything, but
and those battles too, like you can just get decimated by any Joe Schmo, it feels like. So
yeah, well, there's the early ones with the ant. There's like ants that multiply or whatever.
Oh, yep. Yeah,
those drove me nuts because I'm like, but like one guy, and then all of a sudden he like multiplies into 3 more, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like,
classic. Yep.
Yeah. So we have had a few of those, but yeah, that'll be another episode, I'm sure. Yeah, we got a Baldur's Gate. We'll have a Baldur's Gate episode coming up where we're talking about all our crazy stories. We'll have a Sea of Stars. I'm sure a couple of them. Like I think we'll have an early impressions earlier, and then we'll have like a longer one.
Don't worry, people. We'll still be talking about Mario RPG, even if David's a monster. No worry.
Well, I'd be the only one not getting it if that was the case, because I know the three of you have all, you probably all pre-ordered it at this point. So.
Actually, I had. Well, I've been doing the vouchers for Nintendo because with Costco, I can get $100 essentially for 90, and then I'm getting 2 games, so I'm saving $30. You know,
Oh, that's a good deal.
so it feels better. So I've got Mario Wonder pre-ordered. I used the other voucher on Pikmin, and I felt like Mario RPG was one I was going to want to get physical.
Yeah,
So,
that makes sense.
But it's gonna. Man, yeah, 2023 has really been a monster year.
Yeah, it doesn't even matter what comes out in 2024 because I'll be still playing 2023 games well into that.
I mean, I might be playing Baldur's Gate till 2025. I feel like, who knows?
Yeah. Well, if the Switch 2 is a real thing, I hope it's late 2024 because I have no time.
That would be nice. I hope it's. I would be happy with like a Christmas time next year, November. You know,
Yeah.
give us a year swan song for Nintendo Switch, and boom, boom. Now, real quick. Oh, sorry. Do you got something?
Oh, you go ahead.
Well, I was going to say before we go, we sort of did this over on Talk Nintendo this week. Was sort of like, hey, if it ended today, the year ended today, what would your game of the year be? And I figure we could just do a quick little, almost a last call, if you will.
Yeah. Right now for me, it's a two-way race between Octopath 2 and Baldur's Gate 3.
Dude, I can't. Octopath came out this year. That's crazy.
I think it did.
It feels like this year's been bonkers, man.
I think that was like March or April, I think, but
sheesh.
It certainly feels like it came out like 3 years ago.
Unbelievable. I was thinking about it.
February, end of February.
I do love that good. It seems like there's always a good RPG that comes out at like the end of January or February sometime, you know?
Yeah.
It seems like every year there's like a nice. I know Nintendo likes to put Fire Emblem out, I feel like around then. I was thinking about it. There's so many good ones, right? You know, you got, Pikmin, you've got Diablo, you've got, Resident Evil 4 came out, remake this year. But I honestly, like my first thought would go Pikmin 4.
Oh yeah, you liked it that much? Eh?
It was just one of those, like, I was excited for it, but like not, you know what I mean? Like I knew I'd play it, but like the hype level wasn't there just because it was like, whatever. And it really knocked my socks off, and what a beautiful game.
I'm thinking for the Game Awards, I'm thinking Baldur's Gate 3 is probably going to end up winning.
Yeah, it's funny because like I've seen a portion of the internet is like, well, like there's no way Zelda's going to win. It's going to be an afterthought. But then it's like, no, Zelda's always going to be in the conversation. Then you got Baldur's Gate. Just everyone loved it. You know what I mean? It came out, the darling. We were talking on Slack a little bit. Like I was worried the PS5 version, they hadn't really talked about it. And like, and I saw some early little bugs. I haven't run into any bugs myself. And I believe it's actually trending higher, the reviews on PS5 than on PC.
Oh, yeah. I don't even know how that's possible. It was like 96 on PC.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was at
wild.
97, excuse me.
Oh, jeez. That's wild.
Let's real quick before we end it. Baldur's Gate, PS5, 97.
Oh, that's wild. Yeah, I feel like it's Tears of the Kingdom, like it had all the hype, but it feels like just nobody's talking about it anymore. And maybe that'll be the same with Baldur's Gate 3, but
it's got a weird thing with it that like at face value you're like, oh, it's Breath of the Wild again, you know? Yeah. But then when you get in there, it's so different in terms of like what like the abilities you have and all that stuff. But it is like you still are in Hyrule, and they've added a lot to it. But I feel like it's gonna have trouble shaking the it's just, quote unquote, it's just another Breath of the Wild, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like you said, Baldur's Gate seems to be like the darling. Who knows? Mario Wonder could come out, like that could easily get people like a new 2D Mario. It's been a long time, so
yeah,
it's definitely going to be an interesting year. And you know what? I welcome it. Usually, there's one like, it's going to be God of War this year, you know, or it's going to be this game. So, hey, I like when we get a little bit of a mystery. So,
yep.
And if you asked Alex, he'd tell you it was Armored Core 6.
Yeah, well, that's quite the promotion. It's making me think about it. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's cool, man. And I mean, I think mechs are just cool in general, right? Like that was the coolest thing about Xenoblade Chronicles X. Like, oh, you get the
Oh yeah,
scale,
yeah.
like, and then you got the scale. You're like, this is cool. But like this is like, oh, you get to be in a scale, and then like you also just get to wreck people. So
Yeah.
very fun.
Cool. Alrighty, well, I guess we'll leave it for this week. I want to thank everyone for listening, and yeah, you can look forward to. Oh man, the 2024 slate for the rest of the year. The episodes are just. There'll be just game after game after game, so there'll be something for everybody. So
Good time
yeah,
to be a gamer.
good. Yeah, it's might be a history making year, that's for sure. But
Yeah, I mean, what 2017 was real good, but I don't. It feels like it can't even hold a candle to 2023.
no, it feels like, and like we're only 8-9 months in now, so there's
Yeah.
still plenty to come out. It's wild.
Woo-hoo-wee.
Yeah.
Amen.
Well, thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see everyone out at the next Thirsty Mage.
Adios.